Palomar College is taking a stand to becoming an anti-racist college. Many equity-minded and race-conscious leaders on our campus have led discussions, forums, healing circles, and professional development workshops to eradicating racism and education. If you are not an anti-racist, then you are complicit to racism. You will hear some of the narratives and lived experiences of our Black, Indigenous colleagues of color at Palomar College. Please know, the more safe spaces we provide on our campus, the brave spaces we can share. The reason why we're sharing our personal narratives and lived experiences is for you to listen and learn that racism is apparent in the lives of educators as well as students in our society, even today. The following is a message I share with my counseling students in my course, and they too have the opportunity to share their racial and cultural phenomenology with me as well. My name is Husna Sadat Ahadi, and no, I will not anglicize my name. Instead, keep my ancestors proud. I grew up in the barrio of Santa Ana, California, for immigrating to the United States and being undocumented, for experiencing homelessness and food insecurities twice in my life, once as an infant and the second time as a mom of 2 infants. I am that student in high school who you would last think I would succeed, for I had a low GPA and no mentor to guide me. I remember my mother's words to my brothers and I, "We have come to America to reach for the stars." See, I come from a country where there are more children who are harmed by landmines and warfare than educated in schools. As a former community college student, I needed agency to be where I am today. I'm the person who always gets asked, "No, where are you really from?" Having to explain my racial identity, religion, sexuality, age, immigration status to others has been impetus for them to marginalize and become xenophobic to my own community. I'm the person who is told by white supremacists to go back to your country. Meanwhile, they have taken lands from indigenous communities. See, this is a country that was founded on racism, and many continue to ignore the structural and systemic and overt racism that exists in our communities and education system. See, I was not born to fight racism, nor being oppressed by it, yet I'm still advocating anti-racism as an educator. Let this be the moment where you find your purpose as an anti-racist educator, to be more than an ally and to take risks to support, protect, and show solidarity for Black, Indigenous students of color at Palomar College.
Many people are unaware that most Black children are raised early on to understand the world through Black eyes. From a very young age, I was taught to be conscious of how my skin color and race would be received and perceived in society, especially as a Black male. I had countless lessons on how racial profiling worked, how to engage with law enforcement to minimize the risk of deadly force, and how to mask my Blackness in a way that was socially palatable to mainstream society. We often forget that we are only 1 or 2 generations removed from a Jim Crow era and a racially segregated South. In fact, both of my grandfathers attended and graduated from all Black high schools, and they vividly remember the days of having to sit in the back of the bus, dine at only colored-friendly restaurants, and drink from Black-only water fountains. Their stories and life lessons helped shape my identity as a Black man and taught me how to navigate a world where not everyone might want to see me succeed. Due to systemic racism, I was taught to work twice as hard to achieve the same goals as my counterparts, and that in most cases I would receive less recognition when doing so. My family has always believed that higher education would pave a way to better opportunities for me and my descendants, which encouraged me to be the first in my family to attend a 4-year institution and pursue a graduate degree. Through my experience in education on both sides as a student and educator, I saw how the education gap played a crucial role in hindering the advancement of Black people and other minorities. I was often the only Black student in many of my classes during undergrad, and was the only Black male in the cohort for my MFA program. At times, you can feel out of place and isolated in the sea of blonde hair and blue eyes, and I don't think that I would have weathered as well if there wasn't for programs like Upward Bound and EOP, or having access to minority tutors and mentors that cared, or even scholarship opportunities that were geared towards first-generation Black college students. This is why I'm such an advocate for creating safe spaces and resources geared towards students of color, specifically because they are often the ones that feel isolated or out of place on college campuses in our classrooms. Many people don't understand the mental effects that systemic racism has on Black people and other minorities. It can breed a constant fear of inadequacy, like you're just not good enough or up to par with your peers. You start to feel like you're being scrutinized under a microscope with no room for errors. And I remember how discouraging it felt when I encountered educators that made me feel like they didn't care a whole lot about my success. Black students aren't often cultivated for higher education, although they can be with the right influence and guidance on our part. Being anti-racist means that you acknowledge these obstacles and challenges that minority students often face, and that you are ready and willing to put forth the effort to meet students where they are when they make it into your classroom. We can all still recall that one educator that inspired us or encouraged us to be our better selves. And we are always grateful to them for seeing something in us that we couldn't necessarily see ourselves. As educators, we have the responsibility to make the world a better place, one student at a time. And I hope that we all choose to use our power to uplift and encourage whatever student enters our doors. Thank you.
Why are we here? It's unfortunate that people assumed that Black and brown people need to fight against racism. That shouldn't be the case. It's time for Palomar to wake up and notice either the implicit and or overt biases that people have against students and faculty of color. Just to share part of my lived experience here at Palomar, I do not care how well-intentioned people are. Many of the microaggressions and barriers that people put upon BPOC faculty are hindering their growth and full potential at Palomar. I do not care how many times people try to say that I'm articulate or ask that how thick my accent is or asking where am I from with the assumption that I either don't belong or should be grateful that somebody is gifting me something for being at Palomar instead of recognizes that I have fought and merit being here because of my experience and by my qualifications. So if you've ever asked yourself, well, what can I do? Well, it's time to take action. Words are no longer enough. If you really want to become an anti-racist, you need to do something, not just simply stand by the sidelines. So don't wait for somebody to tell you what to do. Rather, educate yourself and try to start any change that you can in your sphere of influence. Even if you're not tenured, even if you do not belong in a shared governance committee and are in the top decision making, you still need to fight for our BPOC students inside of your classes. You need to elevate them and be an advocate for them. If you still don't know how to participate, then join us for the plenary PD session called Decolonize Your Syllabus and start with the basic things that you do have control over. Thank you.
So I wanted to tell you a story or experience that I had about racial profiling, but I first want to tell you a little bit about myself and how I love cars. Ever since I was a little kid, I always liked to like really nice cars. And once I got old enough to drive cars or own cars myself, any car I had, I've always wanted to customize them. You know, make it stand out of the crowd, make it a little bit more unique. That's what car guys do, as you can imagine. At this point in time in my life where the story begins, I owned a 1994 Cadillac Eldorado. It was white, cream leather interior. It was really, really nice. I put chrome wheels on it, nice sound system, customized interior. It was the car of my dreams almost. Like, I was young, you know, I couldn't afford much, but it was my pride and joy, and I loved to drive it a lot. And so one time I was hanging out with a couple friends of mine. This was when I was a grad student when I owned this car. Another Black guy, Marcus, and my other Latino friend, Frank, we were hanging out at Frank's house, and we were just leaving Frank's house to go back to Oceanside where we were. We were in Vista. And as I pulled out of the driveway, I saw a police car, a sheriff, drive past me the opposite direction. And at that moment, a little fear came down into me. I knew we weren't doing anything wrong. We were just hanging out, chilling. But you always have a little bit of fear when you see the police. You're thinking that they're going to come after you. So I looked in my rearview mirror, hoping that he wouldn't make a U-turn to come after me. But that's precisely what he did. But before turning on his lights, when he got behind me, he pulled up next to me and gave me a compliment on my car, which I thought was really cool. At that moment, my fear levels went down a little bit, and I was in a better place than I was when he first made a U-turn behind me. But in a split second, he pulled up in front of me to take a look at my car from the front, and I thought he was going to admire the nice gold grill that I had on the Cadillac. But he slowed down and got behind me to pull me over. And when he pulled me over, he told me that I didn't have a front license plate. But because there was 3 guys in the car, he told me for my safety and his, he was going to detain me after getting our information and seeing what's going on. And so after being handcuffed and put into the back of the police car, which was the first time that's ever happened to me, so my fear levels went right back up. I thought I was going to go to jail. I had no idea what was going to happen. He went and talked to my other occupants in the car, my friends, and of course didn't find anything. He did ask to search my car, the trunk in the back, for anything, and I felt a little pressure. I felt like I knew my rights, but you know, when you're in a situation like that, sitting in the back of the police car in handcuffs, and he asks you to search your car, you don't say no, and so I consented to doing that. But of course, nothing was found. None of my friends had any warrants or anything like that, and so the police let us go. And that's an important part of the story because you don't have to log this encounter if you didn't write a ticket. There's not going to be any information that you pulled over a car full of Latinos and Blacks if you don't actually write the ticket. So that's an important part. And so I want to turn to some legal scholar about racial profiling. And what I learned was in the 1996 US Supreme Court versus Warren decision, it gave police officers a lot of discretion, especially if they're racially motivated, to harass men of color. Particularly, they use a pretext stop, which is a police stop where they pull you over for a minor infraction to search your car for a larger infraction, to escalate the situation. And this is exactly what I experienced here. And so reforming the police is very, very important because they use legal mechanisms, legal practices within the police structure to carry out racially motivated outcomes. And that's my story.
My first experience with racism happened early in my childhood years, when within 2 weeks of moving to the United States, a white female teacher told me I should start making an effort to speak more English, or my family and I should go back to Mexico. In Mexico, I'd always been a good student, but all of a sudden, I felt embarrassed and ashamed, a type of school-induced racial trauma that continued and manifested itself in different ways. In college, I was alone to navigate the expectations of the academic setting, to choose a major and a career when no one in my family had ever gone to college. My father was a farm worker who supported me through college with a minimum wage job and little to no English. Going to college challenged the notion that hard work and effort alone were going to equal college and career success for me. There was so much I didn't know and no one to show me the ropes. I struggled to adapt academically and to engage socially. I was a young Mexican girl from Imperial Valley, learning from predominantly white faculty whose lived experience seemed so far removed from mine. The feelings of being an outsider were hard to describe, but were so deeply felt. Racially minoritized students are students who, due to circumstances outside their control, deal with issues of racism, such as teachers questioning their competence. They often experience social and economic barriers, stigmas, and prejudices. From very early on, my middle school teachers' overt racism made me feel like a second-class citizen. We owe it to our racially minoritized students to look within, to do our part to eradicate the system of racism that tells them that they don't belong, to create a system of support, care, and belonging. If the terminology or the lived experiences you learn about today are new to you, I encourage you to start questioning how the systems we're a part of maintain exclusionary and racist practices. It is our responsibility as practitioners to become race conscious, to create safe spaces to share our narratives,
and to center individual efforts in becoming anti-racist and equity-minded educators.
So I have been teaching sociology for the past 10 years. I'm going into my second year as an associate professor here at Palomar, and I have been a Black woman all my life. So conversations about race and racism are a regular part of my being. Like many of my colleagues, we have been actively working to teach our students about race and the disastrous and inhumane effects of racism. We know all too well the struggle of bringing awareness to the covert ways in which interpersonal racism operates. Living in Southern California in an era of cancel culture, I think most people take the approach that as long as I don't use racial slurs or stereotypes in a public setting, and I'm nice, and I can quote a line from I Have a Dream, then I can comfortably say I'm not racist. But again, the more difficult task is to move beyond being not racist and becoming anti-racist. Anti-racist work actively encourages us to engage with and confront racist practices in an effort to dismantle and destroy them. Doing this work on a personal level can be difficult, but trying to implement it on an institutional level presents a whole set of challenges. If people are blind to their own implicit biases, imagine how difficult it is to convince others that a system or an institution upholds and routinely executes racist practices, especially in a country that makes false claims about equality. But anti-racism work is not new, it is possible, and it does result in change. When I sit and think that my personal lineage is tied to slavery, beyond basic human rights, my ancestors were denied the right to read. My grandparents grew up under Jim Crow laws. My mother attended a segregated elementary school. And I have my own experiences with racism in the educational system. Yet here I am today teaching at the college level. It's overwhelming. My life is a result of the dedication and commitment that Black people have made to institutionalizing anti-racist and specifically anti-Black racist work. I'm encouraged that Palomar has finally acknowledged what so many of us have known for lifetimes, that Black lives matter, Black people matter, and that Black Lives Matter is not a moment, it's not a saying, but a movement towards dismantling and abolishing anti-Black racism at an institutional level. My hope is that with the dedication to anti-racism work on an institutional level, my daughter and my son will not have the experiences that I had, that none of our children or future generations will be denied opportunities because of their race. I cannot stress enough how important this is for our school to no longer be passive in our approach to creating an equitable experience for our students. We have an obligation to our students as educators to be active in our fight against racism. Thank you to those of you who have been tireless in your pursuit to bring change to Palomar. And for those of you who have been hesitant, it's not too late. Join us. Find ways you can get involved. Don't let this time pass you by.
We all know how unprecedented this year is. We're living in a time of immense pressure and change. However, the folks at Palomar College are no strangers to difficult times. Actually, this college regularly shows up to task when faced with real challenges. Our faculty, administrators, and staff are known to use their grit and expertise when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. And I hope now will be no different. We are living in a social movement, and our BIPOC colleagues are afraid that this moment will pass us by. It's imperative that we all come together to listen, to learn, to collaborate, and most importantly, take action for becoming an anti-racist college. This is achievable, but we need your leadership and support. Each of you have unique skills, expertise, and passion. I invite you to contribute those skills as you are to this movement. This summer, we have already taken powerful strides by joining the USC Equity Alliance. We've hosted multiple healing circles, and we've introduced new perspectives to task forces. Equity-focused trainings have also already occurred. I hope many of you were able to attend them yesterday. There are a range of ways to get involved. Here's a snapshot of what's happening. You can join the conversation on the Inclusion and Equity Microsoft Teams channel. At the time of this recording, there are 17 groups that have used grassroots energy to introduce new initiatives, host events, and address areas where growth is still needed. These groups are open to all and could use your skills. I'm pleased to announce the formation of a new group, White Allies for Anti-Racism at Palomar College. This group is open and inclusive to all employees, and it focuses on listening, learning, collaborating, and acting in support of BIPOC colleagues at Palomar. The first meeting will be held on Friday, August 28th at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. via Zoom. More information on how to sign up is coming soon. You can also enroll in the African American History 101 course, which was specifically created for Palomar employees, and it's taught by Dr. Jerry Rafiki Jenkins and Dr. Martin Yatok. Or you can collaborate with the theater department to bring your narrative to an audience as part of It's Monumental, Ending the Silence. This project seeks to create short plays, monologues, poems, songs, or other performing art elements that explores the dynamics of racism. And don't forget, you can step up to work with PCTV as they document our experiences with moving forward the anti-racist framework at Palomar College. This is only the surface of what's to come. More details about how to sign up for initiatives will be shared with you via email. So again, I invite you to get involved. Your skills and your input are invaluable to this movement and will help guarantee its success. So from me to you, I offer my most sincere encouragement. I want you to know if you feel nervous, that's okay. Or if you sometimes think you don't have the right words, that's also okay. However, what's not okay is to remain on the sidelines. For our students, our community, and ourselves, we must be accountable and seize this movement for change. Thank you.
There's a lizard discovered in the Philippines in 2010. The Bititawan monitor is over 6.5 feet long. It lives in trees. It's vegetarian and it's endangered. They have distinct markings. Color combinations of black, brown, blue, green, and yellow in America. I've been mistaken for combinations of black, brown, yellow, and tan. Joseph Peter Limer. My name is a license plate with Confederate tags. Birth certificate says Joseph for Sosa Lutap. Says my birth father was in the Navy. Fitting, because it's the only anchor to a heritage that gets swept up in secrets hidden behind my mother's eyes. On the day I was born, you could hear fragmented English and Tagalog whispers celebrated by skeletons in the closet to keep me forever homesick and broken noted identity. My mother had me in this country, but in order to stay, she married a white man and learned to imitate love. We learn to imitate the image of American family and fold it into humble bow. It's hard to find voice in a marketing ad growing up like a zoo exhibit in the suburbs. See, I've been doing impressions of middle class as a fight or flight response, but prejudice is hard to understand when the racist looks like you. The moment hate speech is unearthed at family reunions, you know, the ones where honesty should clearly come with a stop sign and judging eyes, see the American dream in 2020 vision. Can't speak of lives mattering without whispering white entitlement. Can't talk about interracial relationships with family. Judgment handcuffed with eye rolls and silent nods and ends with, well, at least she's not Black. It's a betrayal that makes breathing feel evil. I'm ashamed. The way my family gossips, prejudice in the air like the smoke from burning crosses. So do not toe tag our culture and ask for a moment of silence. Our culture lives in silence, and traitor tastes like bile hidden in garlic and soy sauce. How can we confront racism when we can't confront it in our own living room? Wooden fork and spoon on the wall reminding me of the bullshit I'm about to eat. I'm ashamed the way my kuya does impressions of other races. It makes me feel like endangered, applies to me and the lizard. See, the lizard looks Komodo dragon, but spends life scared of its own reflection. Ironic how it can act all hard and tough, yet be afraid of any real struggle. Ironic how we can preach civil rights struggle, yet joke around in forked tongue. The lizard spends less than 20 minutes of its life on the ground. I've spent less than 20 minutes of my life feeling grounded. See, silence isn't the answer, and being hunted by my reflection is like living life as a bullseye, avoiding mirrors. I should have never put my faith into something so broken. Gutted and scapegoated, my cries have become viral. We, the epitome of virus. I should have realized that what America wants me to be has been the quickest way to my extinction.